at Kind Community, and this is the Kind Community Show. We share stories of founders, activists, and influencers promoting positivity and the protection of our planet, discussing how collaboration can help make the sustainable, attainable, and accessible for all. On today's episode, we have Svanika, founder of and CEO of rePurpose Global, the catalyst for purposeful people and companies wishing to manage their plastic footprint, helping to finance the innovators driving change for the future of our planet. Today, we'll be getting to know Svanika, her story so far, what rePurpose represents, and how to empower structural evolution to clean up the world. Hello, Svanika. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, it is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I know we had a bit of technical issues before, but we're up and running now. So thanks again for joining us.
All good.
So, rePurpose Global, it seems to be the first of its kind in the world. Could you explain to us in layman's terms what it does do, how does it work, and what is a plastic credit?
Yeah, definitely. So we like to think of ourselves as the world's leading plastic action platform, helping companies and conscious people, conscious businesses act on their plastic footprint. We do a variety of different things. We help businesses measure their plastic footprint. We help them reduce it where possible. And then what can't be reduced in the immediate short run, we help them offset it by financing one of our plastic credit projects around the world. And so today we have plastic credit projects running in South America, across Africa, across Asia, removing over 11 million pounds of plastic annually from nature. And this is done through a variety of different ways, everything from investing in waste management infrastructure, investing in supply chains that are able to catch the plastic waste before it gets out there and becomes plastic pollution, investing in perhaps alternatives to plastic, alternatives to virgin plastic, such as closed loop models and so on. And so at the crux of all of this sits the idea of a plastic credit. So like you asked, I think it's one plastic credit, the way we envisioned it and the way we built it today is the equivalent of 1 additional kilogram of plastic that is removed from nature. And so the idea for plastic credits really came from carbon, where for those of you who are familiar with the carbon market, carbon credits have been around for quite a while now, and they were quite revolutionary in their own right, in being able to unlock private sector capital for solutions that could combat climate change. And we said, why not apply those same principles? Why not build on the weaknesses and the strengths of the carbon market and apply it to plastic? Where now today, anywhere, anybody anywhere out in the world can come in and say, well, I have $1 and I really want to do something to remove plastic with my $1. What am I going to do with it? Well, all you need to do is purchase a plastic credit, and then we will kind of use that funding to then translate it into 2 kilograms of plastic that is removed from the environment. So it's really, a kind of common currency, a unifying metric, a common language for us to talk about, compare across, and invest in plastic recovery around the world.
Incredible. It's probably why you were Forbes 30 under 30. Firstly, what an amazing achievement. Secondly, how did you get it to this point? Where did your journey begin? And what has been your primary motivation of driving you to succeed today?
Yeah, I think about that a lot actually. So I'm here today in Oman. I'm actually visiting my parents over here. And I grew up in the Middle East, and in this tiny little country, Oman, which is kind of like the suburban cousin of Dubai. Not many people know about it. And Muscat, the capital city, is actually surrounded on 3 sides by the ocean. And so my entire life, it was kind of, the beach was a part of who I was. And I grew up with this love and appreciation for how majestic our ocean was, and then everything to do with marine ecosystems. And then I went off to college, went in and did all of the regular things. I studied business, thought about becoming an investment banker somewhere along the line. And very coincidentally, my senior year, I decided to write my thesis on the topic of informal recycling across the world, informal plastic waste recycling. And I was really trying to investigate, right now, today, about 90% of the plastic that we produce is actually not recycled and somehow ends up in nature. It's either landfilled or burnt or leaks into rivers and leaks into our oceans. And so I was just trying to figure out, well, why is that? Is there kind of like some fundamental problem that we're missing? And so my co-founders and I spent an entire year quite literally going from, landfill to landfill, dumping ground to dumping ground, from South America to Africa to Asia. And we were standing in the middle of all of these kind of, skyscrapers of trash, basically. And then we came to the realization that it was not that there were not any solutions available. We had met with hundreds of change makers, thousands of waste management companies that could really do good, that could actually stop the plastic crisis. But the fundamental problem was that they lacked access to capital. They just didn't have enough money, basically, to scale up the solutions that we know worked. So they had these tried and tested answers, and we were just not funding them. And then, waste management in general is an inherently unprofitable sector. So there's no way you can just kind of, finance it yourself. You really need to get that funding from somewhere else. And if the local governments and the municipalities are not able to do that, then you do turn your attention to the private sector and say, well, all of these corporations out there, all of these companies, businesses, they're the ones putting their plastic out there into the environment. Why not give them the opportunity to be a part of the solution as well? And that's really kind of, how plastic credits came about, where we said we have a financing problem, so let's create a financing instrument as an answer to that, and then give that financing instrument to businesses to really connect it with the plastic in their own supply chain, the plastic in their own footprint, and give them that opportunity to remove an equivalent amount from nature. So to give you a quick example, most of the businesses that we work with today are part of the plastic neutral certification program. What that means is, they come in, they measure their plastic footprint. We say, okay, business, your plastic footprint today is 100 kilograms. That's the amount of plastic you're putting there into the environment. And then they say, well, we're going to purchase 100 plastic credits, which means they are funding the removal. They're removing 100 kilograms from nature that otherwise would have sat there for decades, that otherwise would have been there in that landfill or in that ocean for kind of hundreds of years to come. And therefore, in a way, on net basis, they are removing as much plastic from the environment as they're putting out there. So they're net neutral while they actively try to reduce their plastic consumption going forward, so that eventually, that number becomes lower and lower.
So can you tell us a bit more about how do brands become part of Repurpose? What common strategies are there that many businesses can adopt to quickly reduce their plastic within their supply chains?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, I'm a huge believer of the fact that there are no social or environmental issues there that really have a silver bullet solution. I think we'd all love for, if there was just one single magic idea and I just implemented that idea and the problem was fixed. And then the business could just kind of like say, yes, I've done my part. But it really isn't like that. And I think what we need to do is figure out what is the toolkit, what is the plastic action toolkit for any brand, packed with a series of complementary things that they can do that collectively become the answer to their plastic crisis problem. And so when we think about the series of things that companies need to do to engage in the plastic conversation, it always starts with measurement. You cannot change what you cannot measure. You cannot change what you don't know. And so the very, very first step, and this is, it sounds like common sense, but we often see so many brands out there that are just trying to kind of of like figure out, how we're gonna change our plastic packaging without ever having kind of done a comprehensive measurement process to understand where they stand today. And so the first thing that we do when companies come to us is walk them through that measurement process to really figure out where is your plastic footprint coming from, and how do you compare to other businesses in your sector. How do you benchmark against the averages? Are you way higher? Are you way lower? And what are your specific hotspots? And so there's always some low-hanging fruit that we can address. Maybe you're using way more plastic in your distribution, in the bubble wrap, in your plastic packaging when you send it to the end consumer, especially now that e-commerce has become really big. Or maybe, in your packaging itself, there could be another material that you could be using, but you're using PP or HEP or whatever it is, because you don't know what else to use. Or it could be something as simple as maybe plastic is the only alternative today, but you can use post-consumer recycled content instead of virgin plastic content. So it's a whole host of different things that can be done, but it really begins with understanding where the problem is, which is the measurement piece of it. So in terms of kind of the steps in that toolkit that I would talk about, the first is the measurement step. The second is, once you've measured it, figuring out your reduction roadmap to basically say, well, this is how much plastic I have today. This is how much I can reduce realistically this year, and this is how much I'm going to reduce next year, and this is the series of things that I'm going to follow to get there. And then step number 3 is offsetting, which is where they say, well, while I am reducing my plastic, there is still some that is going out there into the environment. How do I remove that from the environment? And that's where plastic credits come in. And finally, and this is also an overlooked piece, piece number 4 is then communicating that with the consumers and opening a two-way communication street for the consumers to kind of talk back and then go on that impact journey and be educated, and then create real change alongside the brand. So yeah, that's kind of the way I would look at the plastic action toolkit.
And how do brands become part of Repurpose? Is it something that you guys go and reach out to them, or are they proactive and they reach out to you?
It often is that they reach out to us. So we do have different certification programs for our brands. We have the plastic neutral certification that we just talked about, which basically means that the brand is removing as much plastic from the environment as they are putting out into it. We have the plastic negative certification, which is where the brand removes at least twice as much plastic from the environment as they put out into it. And so right now we have over 200 brands that we work with. We just crossed the 200 mark last week, actually, from everywhere, from Japan, Argentina, South Korea. The vast majority do come at the moment from North America. And so what often happens is network effects. It's ripple effects where one brand sees that perhaps a competitor or someone in the adjacent sector has now launched this program, the plastic neutral program, and all of the consumers are loving it. And then they say, well, why don't we do something like this as well? And so then they come to us and ask to get started on that plastic action journey.
And Svanika, do you have businesses that say perhaps opt for the plastic negative certification that aren't actually have already gone about measuring and mitigating their plastic? In fact, they may have even removed plastic from their entire supply chain, but just want to go above and beyond and be regenerative?
All the time. And we have a special program actually called the Impact Guarantee Program just for them, where we have people who use no plastic in their packaging at all, but then want to kind of go further and really play an active role in healing the planet. To basically say, well, we've done our part, and then but there's still plastic out there, and someone needs to do something about it. So I'll give you a quick metaphor on how we can think about it. When you come, when you've been out for like a night out and you walk through your door and you realize that your bathroom is flooded because you somehow left the tap on, and the water is kind of flowing into your sink and it's flowing into your tub and your entire bathroom is flooded. Well, the first thing that you want to do is close that tap. You want to shut the water. But then once you've shut the water, once you've closed the tap, your bathroom is still flooded, and you still need to clean the water up, and you still need to kind of get to that as well. And it really is a similar analogy that you can apply to the plastic crisis as well, where where we've been pumping plastic waste, just pumping plastic waste out there, and it's reached the most remote corners of the planet now. And interestingly, as people in the United States and Canada, it's actually shocking that we don't deal with the vast majority of our plastic inside our country. We ship it across the world to places like Vietnam and Malaysia and India, and then ask them to deal with it when unfortunately they don't have the capacity to actually process it in an ethical, environmentally sustainable way. And so because of all of these different things, there's so much plastic already out there in the environment that even if all of us just, I waved a magic wand and poof, we just all stop using plastic this very second, for the next few hundred years, there's still going to be plastic leaking out there into the environment just by virtue of how much is already out there. And so we do encourage, businesses that the starting point is plastic neutral, to at least remove as much as you're putting out there. But definitely, if we want to heal, if we want to go beyond just neutral, I think you really need to kind of move into the space where you're removing plastic that perhaps you didn't put out there in the first place, but desperately needs to get taken out.
Svanika, can you share us a bit more about the 3 projects that you have linked with your Repurposed Rewards, the super easy way for people to shop online, and it's just a Chrome extension. Could you tell us a bit more about the rewards and also the projects, and what plans do you have to add more in future?
Yeah, so Repurposed Rewards, yeah, definitely encourage everybody out there listening to go, enable it on the Chrome. What it does is basically it's similar to, if you're familiar with Honey, you get discounts whenever you shop, and then this does something similar where if you have it enabled, and we have about 30,000 stores right now that have this kind of program with them, where if you shop on Walmart, Target, whatever it may be, Udemy, Coursera, when you purchase online, it automatically unlocks discounts for you, but also unlocks plastic recovery. And it's at kind of no additional cost. So just by shopping, you create impact where you're able to unlock plastic recovery credits. And then these credits, these plastic recovery credits that you unlock when you shop, can be allocated to a program of your choice. So at any given time, Repurpose has 13, 15 different impact projects running on the ground, doing many different things, everything from removing plastic out of the ocean off the coast of Bali, Indonesia, to building entire waste management supply chains and bringing door-to-door collection and waste management to entire villages and towns that never had any before, all the way to thinking about upcycling and finding new end-of-life solutions, perhaps for your candy wrappers and chocolate packets that cannot be recycled, and then maybe building new houses out of it, maybe building new furniture out of it, different things like that. So we have across South America, Africa, Asia, many different projects running all the time, and we keep rotating it on the extension as well. So when you make your account on Repurposed Rewards, you get to choose from some of the 2-3 different pre-selected projects that we have on the ground, which project most resonates with you, which project most speaks to you, and then you can say, well, I want my plastic credits to go there. I want to be paired with that project, and then you'll be able to follow through with our impact, and then we'll send you updates, and then you'll be able to see exactly what is happening because of your contribution on the ground, how the impact is being enabled.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I recommend everyone that's listening right now to go and download it. It's free. Going at it, it's super easy. It was a great initiative there. What Repurpose does so well is its ease and quick adoption for businesses that are in a planet-saving mindset. But what about the other more, say, polluting businesses? How do we incentivize them, and what role can Repurpose play?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think oftentimes we do live in a capitalistic society, and that's a discussion for a different day on a different topic, on how incentives are perhaps misaligned there, and then because of the way success is measured in today's world, right? Success is measured in today's world by your bottom line, and ultimately at the end of the day, for a lot of executives in these big businesses, while there are several other concerns on their mind, mind, the main concern often tends to be the profitability, right? At the end of the year, when I'm turning in my income statement, was I profitable, and how profitable was I? And so there are two ways, I think, when that is the main incentive over there. There are really two ways that we can kind of help businesses get to that incentive while creating impact. And the first thing that I would actually say is the consumer push. Oftentimes, the vast majority of businesses that we see today are being inundated with requests and with demands from their consumers saying, we care about the plastic that you are selling to us. We want to be more sustainable, but you just seem to be only giving us plastic, or you seem to be giving us unsustainable products. So what are you doing about your plastic footprint? And consumers have also started voting with their dollars. And I think that's so powerful. Every time we make a sustainable choice, every time we go in that e-commerce aisle or in that brick and mortar store and choose the more sustainable option over perhaps the less sustainable one, that is a signal to the brand that we are sending that we want a certain kind of product, that consumers are moving towards a certain kind of product. And so when they start to see that shift happening, that's when brands realize that doing good for the planet can also be doing good for the business. And then you're kind of aligning the two incentives, where the incentive to do good for the planet and the incentive to be more profitable, perhaps now going hand in hand, rather than thinking about it as being at odds with each other. And that's essentially what we encourage at Repurpose, to really think about investing in impact, investing in the environment as not a cost item, but perhaps as an item that has ROI potential, an item that will actually generate revenue for you along the way. And a large part of that is in helping them communicate with their consumers, connect with their consumers, and allow those consumers to really be on that journey with them. So that's really kind of how we think about it, where it doesn't have to be thought of as, I'm just adding to my cost, but rather I'm investing in my future and in my future revenue. That's on the consumer side of things. Really quickly, one other note though, we are fast seeing kind of regulatory movements happening along these lines as well. In the carbon market, you saw the cap and trade system, you saw kind of carbon taxation that was given, and then on the flip side, there was some carbon subsidies as well for businesses acting in the right ways. And then we do encourage at Repurpose, we do a lot of work in setting these international frameworks alongside people like the UN and the World Economic Forum, and then the EU local governments and so on, to push forward regulation that can, get businesses to participate in these crediting mechanisms, to participate in these solutions as part of doing business. So yeah, that's something that's coming up as well, but that's, I guess, still in the nascent stages. So a big part of it is just the consumer momentum, I'd say.
Interesting. I can understand how consumers leaning on some of their favorite brands or brands that they want to see change in the world. So I think we must listen and understand that each of us making that small decision does eventually compound and have an impact, and even could affect certain brands' bottom lines should they not listen to their customers. So it does certainly can play a part. In terms of plastic neutrality, are we being too optimistic in hoping that we can remove more plastic than we produce, or should we focus on perhaps one step at a time? What approach has been proven best in your experience?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's just that, I would say there is no perfect solution, right? Like we talked about before, there is no one single silver bullet solution that will completely fix the issue. At the same time, we cannot afford to wait for that solution. And I really think that the biggest piece of it here is celebrating imperfect progress. To basically say, imperfect progress does not mean mean we are satisfied in our pursuit of perfection. It just means we are in a better place today than we were yesterday. And so as we kind of think about the solutions that we're bringing forward, it doesn't, perhaps matter too much if it's not, I have completely eliminated my plastic day zero, right? That's probably a little bit too optimistic and putting an unrealistic amount of pressure on the businesses, which in turn might give them perfection paralysis, where they say, well, I can't, get rid of all of it, so I'm just not going to do anything. And so what we do say is, do your best, and we'll work with you. We'll work with you to find ambitious, realistic targets to reduce that plastic. But at the same time, you do need to be, offsetting that as well. You do need to be investing in solutions that are removing plastic from nature too, because you are still putting stuff out there. And so these things need to happen hand in hand, because we are not able to kind of immediately wake up and say zero plastic anywhere. And there will still be plastic going out into the environment. And even if we did, there will still be plastic going out into the environment. I do think reduction and redesign solutions need to work hand in hand with investment in waste management infrastructure. They're very complementary solutions, and we need to move forward imperfectly on both of them, rather than kind of making the perfect plan for both of them. And then, the perfect plan comes 20 years later. And by that time, we've destroyed most of our marine ecosystems. So it really is, finding whatever you can today and making that taking that step forward, because that's better than just waiting for that perfect idea. So yeah, I would say all of these things work hand in hand, and they're very complementary together. And then if you're a business out there wondering which solutions are good for you, Repurpose can help. That's exactly why we're here.
Thanks for that. And so, on a slightly different topic, could you tell us a bit about your time as a fellow for the Pulitzer Center and the global the global humanitarian crisis that you must have been so up close, and surely that must have influenced your world outlook. Do you think a move towards a systemic change and adopting social structures will be necessary for us to reduce plastic consumption? And how much responsibility does the individual have?
So those are a lot of very very different types of questions. I'll take them kind of like one at a time, and then let me know if I've missed one of them. But I think you're absolutely right. I think all of our developmental issues today are very intersectional, and I strongly believe that it is impossible for us to think about environmental solutions without thinking about the socioeconomic consequences. So at the Pulitzer Center, as a fellow, a lot of the reporting that I did was on the issues of domestic violence against domestic workers that came in from places like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka to the Middle East, to countries like Oman and Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi, all of these different Gulf countries. And it's a very very well documented fact that because there is so much poverty and so much socioeconomic poverty traps in the Indian subcontinent, it is very easy to abuse and misuse and exploit these workers. And so what I did at the Pulitzer Center was specifically talking about domestic helps, women who came into work as domestic helps in the households in the Middle East, and the suffering that they saw on a day-to-day basis. But you're absolutely right in the sense that a lot of this can be translated into the plastic crisis as well, where today, because as the global north and in the developed countries in the US, the UK, Ireland, Canada, we export away our pollution. We say, I don't want to deal with it, and then so out of sight, out of mind, and it gets sent to again one of these poorer countries of the world, who unfortunately, because they're more socioeconomically disadvantaged, have to become the rest of the world's dumping ground. And so because of this, you have millions and millions of people stuck in this informal waste recycling sector that actually contributes to up to 1 million deaths every single year. And so when we mismanage our plastic, when we mismanage our waste, that's not just kind of out there destroying our ecosystems, the birds and the marine ecosystems and then our natural ecosystems. It's also causing a lot of human suffering. It's causing kind of these cyclical poverty traps where people have been stuck in it for decades. And then we work with some of these informal informal waste worker communities that they're called waste pickers, or rag pickers. You might have heard that phrase as well. And these are literally people who have no other sort of economic opportunity, so they go out there into the landfill every single day with their kids, and it doesn't matter how old they are, and they just spend the entire day trying to sift through a landfill looking for a piece of plastic or a piece of waste that can be recycled, that perhaps they can sell it and then get some value out of it. And a lot of them have a life expectancy today of about 40 years, 45 years, because of the brutal conditions that they work in. And so when we're thinking about building systems, when we're thinking about building entire processes and supply chains and systems to tackle the environmental problem, to tackle our plastic crisis, it would be horrendously irresponsible of us to not think about these informal workers, who are part and parcel of that environmental problem. And so every single repurpose project today, every single plastic recovery project that we have on the ground, also creates socioeconomic benefit, where we try to formalize these workers, bring them in stable wages, fair wages, give them all of the benefits of a formal economy, social security, health insurance. A lot of times the kids go to school for the very first time, and you're breaking that trap, that poverty trap, because you're giving upward mobility for future generations. And so when you invest in plastic credits, you're also investing in livelihoods, you're investing in economic upliftment. And I do believe that as with any environmental or social problem, it really is imperative that as change makers, we look at them in a very intersectional way, because they all have effects on each other. They all kind of one problem has a ripple effect on another.
It's totally true. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's the wonderful work that you guys are doing, and it really, for us as kind of community, part of that, having an intersectional conversation about providing solutions for some of the world's largest issues is so important. So often some of these decisions are being come down from the top without any sort of inclusion from people that are greatly affected by the outcome. So I think it's wonderful in what you're doing. Svanika, what's next for Repurpose? Are there any big changes coming up, and where would you like to see the business in 5 years' time?
Great question. I don't know if I have an exact answer to that. I think a lot of what we do at Repurpose is kind of just seeing where the needs are, and just seeing where we can be of most use, and then going in that direction. But having said that, I think what we're really trying to do is vertically expand into plastic and make sure that we're building a holistic suite of solutions for any business out there, so that if anybody, any brand that just said, I want to be responsible, I want to act on my plastic, what do I do? Well, there's a one-stop shop, and then that's Repurpose, and they can come and we give them the entire kind of toolkit, and then they're ready to go. So definitely want to kind of keep seeing that, and get to a place where being plastic neutral is not anything special. I would love to get to a place where it just became a default, where if you are doing business, you need to be offsetting your plastic footprint, and that just becomes a expectation of just the bare minimum that a company will do just by existing. And the same applies for pretty much any resource, right? I think every time we consume, it is bad for the planet, and then we can think about better ways of consuming. We can think about better materials and better energy sources, but the fact of the matter is consumption in itself is harmful to the planet. And then every product that we do, you switch from plastic to glass, that has a higher carbon emission. You switch from glass to cardboard, that destroys our rainforests and our trees, and then so you can jump from material to material, but at the end of the day, what we really need to be doing is kind of bringing down consumption. And so we need to be thinking about our footprint on several different levels. And then so the kind of 5-year plan, or maybe the 10-year plan, is eventually to get to a place where we're able to give businesses a way to planet positivity. So that looks at their entire consumption portfolio, looks at their carbon emissions, their water, their forest, the land usage, their effect on supply chains, on social, on kind of ethical labor standards, the entire kind of all of the different elements that contribute into that consumption that is happening, and then allow them to take action across the board, so that when a product is produced, when a consumer makes a transaction, they know that that transaction is perhaps planet positive because it has looked at everything. But today we're starting with plastic, and then we're starting with the environmental and social impacts of plastic, and then we hope to keep scaling that, and until we're at a place where it includes everything.
Incredible, super exciting times. So that concludes the main part of our show today, Svanika. But are you prepared for our quick fire round? This is a number of questions where we try and answer as quick as possible. So fasten your seatbelt. How do you define sustainability?
I'm sorry?
How do you define sustainability?
How do I define sustainability? I think I would define sustainability as consuming or creating action in a way that does not take away from the future generation of doing that same action. If I can do something with a certain level of ease today and I'm doing it, then the next generation that comes after me should be able to do it with the same amount of ease. And if my action, I guess, prevents them from getting the same thing, from availing the same resources, then my action is not sustainable.
I love that. What are you most hopeful for?
I am hopeful for the younger generation. I have to tell you, I really think, the Gen Z, the people coming out of colleges today, universities, schools today, are just so full of passion. And I think sometimes with us millennials, and I am generalizing over here. Sometimes what I see with us millennials is almost kind of a resignment. We say, wow, the world is just going in a really bad place, and I don't know if anything can be done, so I'm just gonna I'm resigned and I'm just going to do my thing. But the Gen Zs, wow, like I think the amount of energy and the amount of optimism that they have, the real ideas coming out of it, I'm very hopeful. I think they're the ones who are going to change the world. I think they're the ones who are going to rewrite our kind of trajectory.
Who inspires you, Svanika?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with a little bit of the cliched answer of like every single person that I work with. I think when you wake up in the morning, oftentimes as an entrepreneur, it's just full of fires. Your day is just kind of one fire after another, and you're just figuring out, wow, like is it kind of all worth it? I'm working 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. Why is all of that happening? And a lot of that inspiration comes from. So today we work with over 10,000 people around the world with waste workers on the ground, including the community members and their families. And every single day, the amount of love that they have for the work that they're doing, literally working with trash, they're working with garbage, but they come into it with so much passion and so much diligence. And then seeing that kind of change happen, seeing that little even if you're just clearing 1 square kilometer of land every single day, that's progress and that's inspiring. And so I think that's what keeps me going every day.
Yeah, how could you not be inspired by that? I mean, thank you so much for speaking with us today, Svanika. Could you please let our audience know where we can find you and how can they join or collaborate with you?
Yeah, definitely. So we're happy if you're a consumer, if you're a business out there, if you're a workplace, we have options for all of you. So you can check out our website, rePurpose.global, and then there's a ton of resources there on how you can engage, and a whole separate section, business.repurpose.global, specifically for conscious companies on the plastic neutral certification, the plastic negative certification, and then even going beyond that. So come check us out on our website. You can also email us at let's talk at repurpose.global. And of course, I think we'll put our social media handles down here so you can follow us on a journey as well.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And thanks again, Svanika. See you soon.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
If you enjoyed my conversation with Svanika, please don't forget to like, share, and follow, and share this with anyone that you felt was inspired by today, should be inspired. And we go live every week, and we look forward to seeing you very soon. Have a lovely weekend, and bye for now.